Hey guys, Argent here with my favorite Helsing character, and really, in my view, the only kind of complicated, nuanced character in this series. I'm talking, of course, about Paladin Alexander Anderson, who's probably the only character who's better in the manga than he is in the TV show. Paladin Alexander Anderson is shown to be fairly complicated and to be one of the few characters who actually has a real moral compass. Most of the other characters just kind of seem to be boring assholes. But Paladin Anderson is really kind of nuanced in his approach. So we don't know a huge amount about his background. He is Scottish and has an extremely thick Scottish brogue. Um, for whatever reason, though, he became a Scottish priest. He became a priest and currently resides outside of the Vatican, where he operates an orphanage and raises, orphan children, which is kind of interesting. Because it's kind of implied that the kids really like him and that he is basically a decent man, especially outside of combat. As to the actual origin of him, I'm not sure. I like to think that he was a soldier in World War II, probably on the Allied side, and that after the war he was recruited by the Vatican to be one of their enforcers. Um, Due to his religion. My thought is because he has that scar on his face that he had a near-death experience during World War II, and while recovering, they offered to make him a priest, and he had like a near-death experience or a vision of the Virgin Mary or something, and he decided to become a priest, and because of his combat experience and skills in fighting, they made him into a paladin and an enforcer for Iscariot, which I think makes sense. The reason why he appears younger is because the regenerator abilities keep him young, as they do for vampires. So the Vatican performed experiments on him and eventually made him into their super weapon. Alexander Anderson possesses abilities similar to most vampires. Actually, he's probably stronger than most vampires other than Alucard. Being able to call on an infinite number of sword bayonets, which carry a divine blessing on them, which is extremely painful to vampires. He also possesses a number of other divine abilities. It's kind of interesting because God, I think, canonically exists in Hellsing, because otherwise his holy powers wouldn't work, and they wouldn't burn Hellspawn the way that they do. So Alexander Anderson possesses that. When he's not on duty, though, he spends his time tending to the orphans outside of the Vatican. When he is on duty, it kind of depends which series we're going through. In the original, he's kind of shown to be another psychopathic mass murderer, but in the manga and OVA, he's shown to have a strong moral compass. Even though he despises Protestants and wishes to reconvert England and North Ireland, he really doesn't like the slaughter and death of innocent people. While he's initially supportive of the invasion of England to regain it, he finds that Maxwell has gone insane and is just slaughtering innocent people for his own power. And he kind of believes that Maxwell will eventually try to make himself Pope and destroy the church that he loves so dearly, eventually helping Alucard to kill Maxwell, showing that he places his loyalty to the church above personal gain. Um, Alexander Anderson, I think, is a character who truly believes he's doing the right thing. He really wants to destroy Alucard and all vampires in general, probably because they're spawn of Satan, which literally exist off of eating people. So it makes it fairly understandable why a religious man would want to kill them. In that end, he's willing to do anything. I think that's an important thing about him. Regardless of how you feel about Alexander Anderson, he's a character who's completely selfless, willing to submit to repeated painful surgeries, spend his life serving the church, both as a priest, giving up, obviously, the ability to have heirs, the ability to marry, that kind of thing, as well as spending his life caring for others, be it in his role as of killing monsters and protecting the common people, or raising innocent children. While you may find him arrogant and bigoted, you can't really say he's a man who does things that will personally improve himself. Um, Some people call him an anti-villain. I kind of view him as the real protagonist. He's extremely popular among like young right-wing Catholics, mainly ones who watch anime, as they see him as kind of a role model, in the sense that he kind of represents back when the church was a little more rough and ready, when it was more willing to fight for its ideas, and when the priesthood was much more masculine. He kind of invokes real like images of holy warriors fighting against the enemies of God, and kind of the willingness to challenge evil, and to fight it directly wherever it may be. And that's something attractive. I mean, you got to give Helsing credit for something, and Castlevania, to a similar degree, they make Catholicism look cool. They make it look dark and gothic, and as like the soul light standing against a world full of evil and monsters. Um, it really is just very aesthetically nice, and I think it's something we don't play up enough in the faith, because Catholicism looks really cool. We have beautiful vestments, we have beautiful churches, beautiful statues. I don't think there's anything really wrong with promoting kind of the darker, kind of gothic nature of it. I think that's an aspect of humanity too, and if you have a good aesthetic and it's cool, you might as well go with it. I kind of think we need more characters like Alexander Anderson, just kind of Catholic badasses taking down monsters for the Lord. Actually, if you go to Catholic Answers, with regards to Castlevania, um, a lot of people there really like it. Like some people are like, well, I think it's disrespectful, and then someone's like, what's disrespectful about a guy killing demons and saving the innocent on behalf of the church? I don't really see what's wrong with that. But yeah, so ultimately, Alexander Anderson uses the nail of Helena from the cross of Christ and gets just a small speck of the divine power, which interestingly enough, because it's divine power, it comes from life instead of death. So he gains the all the the thorn abilities, the plant abilities, faster regeneration, etc. And to this, Alucard calls him a monster of God, and that he is basically the same as him. Ultimately, though, during their fight, Alexander Anderson loses, and upon dying, kind of finally gains an understanding of Alucard, realizing that Alucard became a monster so he wouldn't have to cry. And that actually, in something much deeper than Alucard himself has ever displayed, believing that Alucard. But yeah, I guess maybe that's kind of Paladin Anderson's reward, that he gets to die, and it's implied he gets to pass on to heaven, because he was ultimately a good man. And it's, I don't know. Maybe it's supposed to imply that he dies to save him, or Alucard kills him to save him from the horrors of immortality and living on as such a horrific monster. But anyways, his death is one of the more emotional moments in the series, and he's definitely, I think, the most complex character in said series. So he's my favorite character, and I think without him, Helsing would be a lot worse. It already has some pretty huge problems. But yeah, that's my view of Paladin Anderson. This is Argent signing out.